at 8 a.m. New York time, and that is at this moment. So, all right, hello to everyone who is watching on YouTube. We are going to be continuing our reading and study of the teachings from Zen Master Empty Cloud. As usual, if you're watching the recording of this live stream, you can move ahead to the 10-minute mark, and that is when we will officially get started with our meditation, reading, and all that jazz. Hello, Linda and Jeremy. Linda, Jeremy, can you both hear me? Hi, Mickey. Oh, voice text. Okay, Jeremy's server muted. Hello, Jeremy.
Hello.
Okay, good. And Linda and Mickey. Hi there, Rodley from Florida. Yeah, can just give me the phone and I'll put it on there. Hello, Abby and David.
Hello, Bante.
Everything going well with you, Abby?
I got the corona, so I was a little sick for a while there.
But you survived.
I have survived.
That's
I
great.
mean, I don't know, maybe I survived, who knows. A little bit of a cough now, but yeah, apart from that, getting better. Thanks for asking. How about
Yeah,
you? How's Italy treating you?
it's great. Everything is sweet and wonderful and pleasant, and just setting up for one of the residents here at our temple cannot speak English, so I'm getting
Oh,
a Dharma talk set up for him to listen to in Italian
oh, I see.
on this
Okay.
phone.
That's cool. Glad to hear it.
When are you coming to Italy, Abi? You have your passport?
When am I coming to Italy?
Yeah,
Probably.
just to come, spend some
I do
time
have a
here.
passport.
Hey,
Hmm.
Bante.
I'll think about it.
All right, good.
Bante, I have a question. Do you think I should put my camera on if it might be like the reason why I'm like moving around a lot.
No need. No need, Jeremy. You don't need to worry about that.
Because if I do put my camera on, then I can like I guess get used to it, having people watch me.
All right. Well, don't worry about that at this moment. Just practice and follow along. Camera on or off, not important.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll see how I go if I'm moving as much.
So just to press play there. Yeah. Okay, Aridia, Derek, Barrage, Maximiliano. Great. Just take another 4 minutes to get settled in, and then we will begin with some meditation.
Hello, Abby.
Hi, Kit and Elder on YouTube. So, in beginning, or rather in preparing to begin, we can give a bit of a context for our practice. We gathering together to do something good, to practice meditation for sure. But there's also this truth of impermanence. This body is not permanent. Old age, sickness, death are alive in us at this moment. A part of our experience. Maybe some of us have experienced death, loss, sickness, old age more personally than others. It's quite possible. But we can recognize that this impermanence is a fundamental part of reality, human life. We can also recognize, bring up that this self, this me, this you, this I, is not permanent, but also that it's not as clear-cut as we can imagine it to be. It's always changing, and it always exists in relationship to something else, in relationship to the environment, in relationship to the state of the body, in relationship to the state of the mind, in relationship to the weather. So this self is not so much a fixed entity or a being, but an ever-changing process.
Are you talking about like the oneness of all life, or?
And finally, we can recognize that there is a dissatisfaction in having a body. There is a dissatisfaction in pleasurable experiences. There is a dissatisfaction in painful experiences. There is a dissatisfaction in neutral experiences, because as we experience something pleasurable and we like it and we enjoy it, we will lose it. We can't hang on to it. We can't keep it. So because of that, we can recognize that there is this dissatisfaction that's also fundamental to life. It's not nihilistic, it's not depressive, it's not to be giving up or that everything sucks, but it's to recognize that there is a lack of liberation in sensual experiences. There's a lack of total peace in unpleasant experiences, even in pleasurable experiences, in eating cheese. It's not quite that. It's not quite there. Even in taking a hot shower. Well, you're not going to be in the hot shower forever. And if it's hot enough, you'll have a different kind of feeling. You'll want to get out. So impermanence, no self or interconnectedness, the variability of this self-experience, and dissatisfaction, recognizing that unsatisfactoriness is a primal, inherent part of our life, part of our lived experience. So we recognize all that, and we set our intention to practice, to meditate, to listen to the Dharma, to embody wisdom. But we don't do it just for this small self, just for me, my, mine. We do it for all beings. We do it to bring benefit to the world, to reduce suffering in the world, to reduce suffering in our interactions with other people. So we contextualize our practice, starting from the fundamentals of mindfulness, to be aware at this moment that there is a present moment. There is a lived experience that is happening right now. And it's not our thoughts about it, not our ideas about it, certainly not a story. And so we can breathe in deeply this mindfulness, this awareness of the body. Breathing in deeply, becoming aware of our lungs, the breath deep down in the stomach, Becoming aware of the chest expanding, the stomach expanding and contracting. To breathe deeply and fully and ground ourselves here in the present moment. To establish the mind and the body here in the present. We don't have to be shy about breathing deeply. We don't have to be shy about breathing in a way that helps us to relax, to calm, to settle. But rather we breathe exactly in that way, allowing the breath to find a natural rhythm, comfortable rhythm. Breathing in and out. Breathing in, bringing the mind home to the body. Breathing out, we can smile to the body. And as the breath finds this natural rhythm, giving ourselves this allowance to allow to just sit here right now, to just breathe right now, to just be aware. Not to worry about, to be involved with, or to concern about any other things, but to just sit here, to just breathe, to just be aware. The constant state of doing something, going somewhere, just constant activity, constant stimulation, jumping around from here to there and there to here. To put it all down at this moment, to just sit, to just breathe and be aware. And as the mind gets distracted, or as we get confused, simply returning to this abiding, this being aware, this breathing, and to enjoy it, the freedom of it, the simplicity of it. Being in this state of not causing harm, not causing disruption, not causing excitement, but just to breathe and be aware. When you're settled in Zen, your mind is serene, unaffected by worldly distractions. You enter the realm of enlightenment and transcend the ordinary world, leaving the world while in the midst of society. So in the midst of society, or in our case, in the midst of community, we will be continuing our reading of the teachings from Zen Master Empty Cloud, and we will be on chapter 8, Perseverance and Resourcefulness. Perseverance and resourcefulness. And you are encouraged to listen to these teachings as a meditation. So you can stay in your meditation position, stay with your breath, stay with your awareness, listening from the heart, listening from the body. A warlord once stopped at a monastery on his way home from a successful military campaign. He came to visit the abbot, who was an old teacher of his. As the abbot and the warlord sat in the courtyard, pleasantly chatting and drinking tea, they were distracted by an argument between a novice and a senior monk. The novice was complaining that the meditation technique given him by the senior monk was ineffective and worthless. "It cannot teach me how to concentrate, much less meditate," shouted the novice. "Give me a more reliable technique." Observing that the argument was distressing his old master, the warlord stood and said, "Please, master, allow me to help this young man." When the master nodded his agreement, the warlord summoned 6 of his archers. The warlord then filled his teacup to the brim and carefully handed it to the novice. "Take this cup of tea," he ordered, and without spilling a single drop, carry it around the entire periphery of this courtyard, the entire boundary of the courtyard. As the novice took the cup, the warlord commanded his archers, "Follow him. If he spills a single drop, shoot him." The archers drew their bows and began to walk beside the novice, who, in the next 20 minutes, learned how to concentrate. Dear friends, there is no substitute for determination. There's no shortcut, there's no substitute for determination. Enlightenment is a serious matter. It can never be attained with a casual or a lax attitude. You must be determined to succeed, and you must be resourceful in your determination. Strange to say, success in meditation has the same requirements as being a suspect in a crime. A person has to have motive, means, and opportunity. It is not enough to have only 1 or 2 of these to be considered a criminal suspect. You must have all 3: motive, means, and opportunity. To help you understand this, I will tell you several stories. The first story I personally witnessed. In the year 1900, following the famous Boxer Rebellion against foreigners, 8 foreign powers, provoked by the attack on their consulates, sent expeditionary forces to Beijing. The Manchu Emperor Guangxui and Dowager Empress Ziji had supported the Boxers in their attacks on the foreigners, and so they naturally feared for their lives. So a bit of a rebellion, a bit of a war going on, and this emperor and empress had supported the instigators of this war. And so, as the people who were affected by this war gathered together some forces and sent them towards Beijing, the empress and emperor were afraid for their lives. In disguise, they fled from Beijing, seeking the safety of Shanxi province. I was a member of their retinue, their group. Nobody was prepared for the journey. We had departed so suddenly and under such emergency conditions that there had been no time to provision the trip. We had no food at all. We also had no horses or money. As you can imagine, the situation was particularly difficult for the imperial family. Not only had they never experienced hunger, but their every whim of appetite had always been satisfied by the finest delicacies. And of course, they never had to walk anywhere. Special chairs and carriages always kept their feet a good distance above the ground. And there they were, trying to pass for ordinary citizens. The first day, we walked and walked and grew hungrier and hungrier. But the imperial stables and kitchens were only a nagging memory. Finally, exhausted and famished, we begged for food. And a peasant obliged us by giving us sweet potato vines and leaves, fare which normally is reserved for pigs. Now the emperor, who was completely soft and spoiled, had never actually eaten pig food before. But because he was so hungry, he truly thought the vines and leaves were delicious. "What is this excellent food?" he asked, and he was certainly surprised to learn its identity. "More, more," he said, and he ate all he could with gusto. We could not linger over this pleasant meal because, unfortunately, we were escaping from 8 different armies. We had to eat and run, as they say. Hurriedly, we walked on. So there was the mighty emperor of China, who previously was carried everywhere he went, and who never ate anything but the finest of gourmet dishes, jogging down the road and dining on animal fodder. I guess you could say he was getting in shape. Mentally, too, because he lost all his imperial airs and seemed to thrive in the simplicity and humility of the situation. But what was it that motivated the emperor to walk so fast and to enjoy eating such common food? And why did he discard his imperial demeanor? I'll tell you. 8 foreign armies wanted to kill him, and he knew it. He was running for his life, and he suddenly developed a rather keen sense of what was important to that effort and what was not. Later on, when peace was restored and the foreigners left, and the emperor and empress were able to at last return to Beijing, he reverted to his old ways. He became the high and mighty lord again. Whenever he felt the slightest pang of hunger, he stuffed himself with delicacies, and of course he never walked anywhere at all. When he was fleeing for his life, he was made of steel. But now he once again was soft and spoiled. Alchemy. Changing the mind, changing our disposition, changing our nature through practice. From soft and spoiled to made of steel in an instant, as we readjust our priorities, as we recognize the immediacy of the situation, the armies of sickness, old age, and death that are moving towards us at an astounding speed. If the emperor had applied the same determination to fleeing from the enemies of his spirit as he had shown when fleeing from the enemies of his flesh, was there anything in this world that he could not accomplish? Well, we all know what happened to the Manchu dynasty. I believe this is the last emperor dynasty of China. After that, the royal family fell apart. Dear friends, the demons of sloth and pride and gluttony never negotiate peace. They are always at war. Only a fierce determination can subdue them. And subdued, they lie and wait for us to slacken in our resolve, when, you may be sure, they will reappear at the earliest opportunity. Determination and resourcefulness, these are indispensable. Never become slaves to convenience and comfort. Learn to adapt to whatever situation you find yourself in. Welcome hardship more than you welcome ease. Be welcoming to the difficulty you find in your practice. Be welcoming to the difficulty you find when you sit down to meditate. Hardship will present you with challenges, and it is in overcoming these obstacles that you will develop character and skill. Challenges are our greatest teachers. Don't be afraid to fail. Just try and try again. There is an old saying that is worth remembering. Good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. If you don't let failures defeat you, they will become the foundation upon which your success will surely rest. To securely rest. Let me tell you about a humble man who acquired the unusual name Imperial Master Dragon Trousers. Once upon a time, actually in the latter half of the 16th century, there was a poor and illiterate man who devoutly wished to be enlightened. He believed himself too wretched and unworthy to become a Buddhist monk, but nevertheless he went to a monastery and asked to be permitted to work in the fields there. Every day this humble man cheerfully worked from dawn to dusk. He was too shy to come forward and directly ask anyone for help. He simply hoped that by observing the monks he would discover a method by which he could achieve enlightenment. One day a visiting monk came to the monastery. This monk had reached a low point in his spiritual life and was going around to various monasteries trying to find a way to renew his faith. He happened to notice the man working so cheerfully in the fields, and he marveled at the man's enthusiasm for hard work. Why did the man so enjoy life? What could his secret be? And so the monk went to the man and with humility and admiration asked, "Sir, would you be kind enough to tell me your method? What practice do you follow?" "I have no practice," said the man, "but I certainly would like to learn one. Venerable Master, would you be kind enough to give me some small instruction?" The visiting monk saw the man's sincerity and humility and was quite moved by it. "You have done for me what many masters could not do," he said. And being truly inspired, he renewed his vow and his determination to gain enlightenment right there on the spot. Then he said to the man, "Although no instruction I could give you could ever be so valuable as the instruction you've given me by your own example, I am delighted to offer you whatever advice I can. I suggest, good sir, that you strive to grasp the Huatu, the Huato, the great question. Amitabha, who is it who now repeats the Buddha's name? Who am I? What is this? All day long as he worked, the man pondered this Huato. And then, when winter came and there was no more farm work for him to do, he retired to a mountain cave and continued to work on his Huato. He made a bed of fragrant pine needles. For food, he gathered pine nuts and dug roots out of the earth. From clay, he made himself a pot, and after baking it in the fire, he was able to boil snow to make tea and soup. Near his mountain cave, there was a small village, and as the winter wore on and the people used up their stores of food, they began to come to him, begging for food. He gave them what he could and showed them where the best pine trees and roots were located. But many of them were too weak to look for food. Worse, in their hunger, they had all become mean and selfish and uncooperative. The man knew what to do. He made a large pot of clay and took it into the center of the village. Then he filled the pot with snow and lit a fire under it. Naturally, all the villagers came out to see what he was doing. Today, he announced, I will teach you how to make stone soup. Everyone laughed. It was not possible to make soup from stones. But the man selected several stones from the mountainside, and after washing them carefully, he threw them in the pot. Then, from the pocket of his threadbare coat, he withdrew a few pine nuts and some dried roots. One of the villagers said, You'll need some salt for that soup. Ah, said the man, I have no salt. I do, said the villager. I'll run home and get it. Another villager said, You know, I just happen to have an old cabbage in my cellar. Would you like to include it in the soup? Of course, said the man, that would be wonderful. And that villager ran home to fetch his old cabbage. Another villager offered 2 shriveled carrots, while yet another remembered an onion he had stored away. Handfuls of rice came from many households. A few more vegetables, a little wild celery, a pinch of pepper, and then, to everyone's delight, the delicious smell of soup filled the air. People brought their bowls and ate with such joy. There was plenty of soup for everyone. What a clever fellow, they all agreed, to be able to make such fine soup from stones. They thanked the man for his recipe, the main ingredients of which were love and generosity. Again the man returned to his cave and continued his work on the Huato. Amitabha, who is it who now repeats the Buddha's name? Who is it? What is this? He grew famous for being a sort of stone soup chef. And when his mother and sister heard about his marvelous power, they came to visit him, bringing an offering of a bolt of fine silk. But when they entered his cave, he was in deep samadhi, and he neither responded to their flattering remarks nor acknowledged their gift. Disappointed and angry, his mother and sister propped the container of silk against the wall and departed. For 13 years he lived in that cave, and at the end of that time his mother died and his sister came alone to call on him. She was agitated and depressed and felt that life had no real meaning. When she entered the cave, she was astonished to find the bolt of silk propped up against the wall exactly where she had left it. What secret power do you have that makes you so independent of things of the world? His sister asked. I have no secret power, he said. I strive to live the life of the Buddha self. I strive to live the Dharma. That didn't seem to her to be much of an answer, and so she got up to leave. Take this bolt of silk with you, he said. Take also something which is far more valuable. And he gave her the precious Hua To instruction. Every day from morning to night, say to yourself, Amitabha, who is repeating the Buddha's name, or Buddho, who is repeating the Buddha's name, who is sitting here at this moment. The Hua To immediately captured her attention. Even before she left, she had begun to make spiritual progress with it. Her thoughts, instead of being scattered and agitated, useless and irrelevant to the matter at hand, suddenly settled down to focus on the Hua To. Instead of being depressed and aimless, she became actively involved in solving the problem. She was concentrating on something besides her troubles. The man, seeing how this method had so fascinated and delighted his sister, realized it was time for him to return to the world and to try to help people. He returned to the monastery where he had first worked in the fields and received ordination in the Dharma. But he declined to live at the monastery. Instead, he proceeded to Xiamen, a town on the south coast of Fujian province, where he built himself a roadside hut. Every day he gathered roots and wild vegetables and brewed a tea which he offered, without charge, to pilgrims and other travelers on the road. Whenever someone asked his advice about spiritual matters, he repeated the advice that had been given by the visiting monk. He recommended that Hua To, that great question. Then, during the reign of Emperor Wan Li, the Empress Mother died, and the Emperor, grief-stricken, planned a magnificent funeral ceremony, one that was worthy of her memory. But which monk was worthy of conducting the service? That was a problem. There is an old saying, familiarity breeds contempt. And the emperor evidently knew the Buddhist priests in the capital too well. He didn't think that any of them was sufficiently saintly to conduct such a sacred service. Day after day he struggled with the problem of finding a suitable monk. And then one night in a dream, his mother spoke to him. In Chengzu Prefecture of Fujian Province, she said, there is a monk who is qualified to lead my funeral service. She gave him no other information. Immediately, the emperor dispatched government officials to Fujian Province to seek out the most holy monks. And the officials, being no better judge of holiness than they are now, simply picked the most eminent, that is, well-known monks they could find. Naturally, these monks were delighted to be selected for the honor, and naturally, the officials were delighted to have completed their assignment. And so a large group of very happy officials and monks started back for the capital. On the way, they stopped at the monk's hut for tea. "Venerable masters," said the monk, "please tell me the reason you are all so happy." One of the eminent priests couldn't resist bragging. "We're on our way to the capital to conduct funeral services for the Empress Mother." This didn't seem like an occasion for joy to the monk. He respected the emperor and the Empress Mother, who were both devout Buddhists. "I would like to help you," he said, asking, "May I accompany you to the capital?" All the officials and priests laughed at him for being such a rude fellow. Then the bragging priest asked incredulously, mockingly, "Do you actually hope to help us conduct the services?" "Oh, no," said the monk. "I merely wish to carry your luggage." "That's better," said the priest. "Very well, you may come as our porter." Meanwhile, the emperor had devised a test for determining which priest of the many who had been summoned was worthy of leading the ceremony. He had the Diamond Sutra, which is this very famous, very powerful Mahayana Sutra, Zen Sutra, carved into a stone. And when he heard that the officials and priests were approaching that palace, he had the stone placed in the threshold of the palace gate. So in the floor of the palace gate, he hid this sutra in stone. Sadly, the emperor watched as one by one the officials and priests walked across the stone, chatting with each other about the different things they would do to make the ceremony more impressive. So they didn't pass the test. They stepped on this holy stone. It's like to step on the image of Buddha or to step on the image of Christ. Or Allah, for that matter, Muhammad. My goodness. So clearly they were not so holy. The porter monk, the monk of our story, was the last monk to approach the stone. When he saw it, even though he could not read, he sensed that it was holy writ, that it was in some way sacred. He stopped and called to one of the priests, "What do these characters say?" The priest turned around, looked down, and read. "Why, it's the Diamond Sutra," he said, surprised. But he kept on walking and chatting with the others. The monk, however, would not cross the threshold. Instead, he knelt before the stone and remained outside the palace gate. So, why did he kneel before the stone? Because he recognizing the profundity of what that sutra, what that teaching represents, the dharma that it holds, the wisdom that it holds. So you don't just walk on something like that, especially if you're this very devout monk. The emperor watched all this and then commanded the monk to enter. "Sire," said the monk, "I am sorry to disobey you, but I cannot dishonor these sacred words by walking on them. If you were reading the sutra, you could hold it in your hands without dishonoring it, couldn't you?" asked the emperor. "If I could read, sire, I would not then be dishonoring the words by holding them in my hands." The emperor smiled, "Then cross the threshold by walking on your hands." So the monk did a somersault and entered the palace by having only his hands touch the stone. The emperor then decreed that this humble monk should lead the funeral ceremony. But when the emperor asked the monk how he intended to proceed, the monk merely replied, "I will conduct the ceremony tomorrow morning. I will require one small altar, one processional banner, some incense, candles, and offering fruit. This was not the grand ceremony that the emperor had in mind. So, prompted by the grumblings of the eminent famous priests, he began to doubt his decision to allow the monk to conduct the services. Immediately he devised another test. He ordered 2 of his most beautiful and experienced concubines, um, female massagers of the temple, of the kingdom, of the castle. He ordered 2 of his most beautiful and experienced concubines to go to the monk's chambers and assist him in his preparations for the ceremony, particularly the act of washing himself. And that evening, by imperial command, these 2 women came to the monk and proceeded to bathe and massage him. But though they used the most sensuous unguents, and perfumes, and did everything they knew how to do to arouse him sexually, he remained unmoved by their efforts. When they were finished, he politely thanked them for their kind assistance and bid them good night. The women reported this to the emperor, who was much relieved. He ordered that the ceremony be held in accordance with the monk's design. During the ceremony, the monk went to the coffin of the Empress Mother and said, "See me, dear lady, as your own original face. Know that in reality there are not 2 of us, but only one. Though there is naught to lead and naught to follow, please accept my direction and take 1 step forward to enter paradise." The emperor overheard this and was again dismayed by the simplicity of the address. "Is that really enough to liberate Her Majesty, the Empress Mother?" he asked. But before the monk could answer, the Empress Mother's voice, sounding a little annoyed, resounded throughout the palace. "I am now liberated, my son. Bow your head and give thanks to this holy master." The emperor was stunned, but so happy to hear his mother's voice that he beamed with joy. Immediately he ordered a banquet to be held in the monk's honor. At that banquet, something strange occurred. The emperor appeared in magnificent attire, and when the monk saw the emperor's trousers, which were richly embroidered with golden sky dragons, he was struck by their beauty. The emperor saw him staring at his trousers and said, "Virtuous one, do you like these trousers?" "Yes, sire," answered the monk. "I think they are very bright and very beautiful. They shine like lamps." "The better for people to follow you," said the emperor. And right on the spot he took off his pants and gave them to the monk. Thereafter the monk was known as Imperial Master Dragon Trousers. I tell you this wonderful story because I want you always to remember those dragon trousers and the persevering monk who received them. Dear friends, imagine that you too are wearing those bright trousers, and be a lamp unto the feet of others, a gleaming light which they may follow. Always remember that just as that monk so quickly noticed the emperor's trousers, others will be noticing you. Do not yield to temptation or distraction. Always keep your practice in your mind. Never be parted from it. It will become the source of your resourcefulness. And just as you should always help others, you should never allow yourself to become helpless. Remember, motive, means, and opportunity. Retain your motivation. Seek the means of enlightenment. Find the opportunity to practice. Then, when someone asks, who is guilty of success in Zen? You can say, I am. So let's take a few moments to sit together. Can adjust your posture. Make sure that you're comfortable. Focusing on our breath, being fully aware of the body, fully aware of our mind at this moment, the motive, the reasoning to practice, the means, the method, the way to practice. And the opportunity to have a healthy body, to have a mind that is simple, stable, to have a community to practice with. Not common, not dull, but this moment, this opportunity, this practice, shining light, golden dragon trousers. So at this moment, to practice wholeheartedly. Breathing and being aware. Just breathing. Just being aware. The motivation to practice. The way to practice, the ability to practice, the opportunity. Don't waste it. And if you're in any way unclear about what does it mean to meditate, to practice, to have a method, You reach out. You make sure that you find the means, the way to practice, and you do it. So that the next time someone asks, have you had success? You can say, yes. Convicted of success. Sentenced to success. Just this breath. Just this constantly illuminating, shining, ordinary mind. Just breathing and being aware. So we can all bring our hands together, and to close out, to finish our group practice, we can say sadhu together 3 times. Sadhu, the meaning of excellent, well done, good job. Placing our practice deep in our mind, deep in our body, making it a part of our life. We can chant sadhu together 3 times. Sadhu. 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 All right. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining. Take a good care of your life. In 5 hours from now, we will have our 2 p.m. Practice. And in about 1 hour from now, one of my teachers, will be having a Zoom meeting from his temple in Myanmar, from his temple in Southeast Asia. So this will be an opportunity to kind of have a bird's eye view of a real master, a real Buddhist monk meditation teacher in Burma, in Asia. So if you have some questions you'd like to ask him, or just to kind of come by and take a look, I'll be posting the link for that in the Discord announcements. So you're welcome to join for that if you like. And that'll begin in about an hour. I'll post the link when it gets started. Okay? Thanks for joining, everyone. Take care, and see you again soon. Yeah, Voila, if you like to keep up with the streams, you can join through the YouTube